Hello, passionate Celtic FC fans. This is Celtic Central News, your exclusive source for Celtic updates. Before we kick off, we appreciate the incredible support. If you love Celtic, subscribe now, hit like, and let's build this community together. Now, on to the latest news. A warm welcome to new subscribers. Your support is crucial. Hail, hail! The story that has shaken Scottish football this week begins with none other than Russell Kenneth Alexander-Martin, the man currently in charge of Rangers. Born in Brighton, England, but capped internationally for Scotland, Martin has always carried himself as a thoughtful, somewhat reserved figure during his playing days. However, the transformation from respected defender to outspoken manager has added a fiery edge to his personality, one that sometimes spills into controversy. The most recent spark ignited when he allegedly insulted Celtic supporters in a post-training exchange, a provocation that quickly escalated from locker room whispers to headlines plastered across Glasgow. What makes this episode even more explosive is the delicate balance of pride and history that fuels the old firm rivalry. For over a century, Rangers and Celtic have stood as cultural and sporting giants in Scotland, their matches carrying weight beyond the 90 minutes on the pitch. To hear that the Rangers boss aimed harsh words at the Celtic faithful struck chords of fury and laughter depending on which side of the city you belong to. What seemed like an offhand insult has now become a story that could shape the coming clashes in Scottish football. Rumors first surfaced on social media late Saturday evening, just after Rangers completed a closed-door training session at their Murray Park facility. A handful of eyewitness accounts, perhaps from staff, perhaps from individuals lucky enough to gain access, suggested that Martin, in the heat of conversation, used derogatory terms aimed at Celtic's loyal support. Nobody has been able to confirm if it was intentional or if it was a slip made in banter with his players, but the impact has been undeniable. Within hours, forums dedicated to both clubs lit up like wildfire, with Celtic fans demanding respect and Rangers fans either dismissing the claims as fabrication or celebrating them as a new chapter of verbal warfare. The narrative took on a life of its own, independent of any official comment, which in truth only made things worse. Silence from Rangers' press office was interpreted as quiet approval by some and guilty avoidance by others. By Sunday morning, major sports radio shows were debating whether the manager had crossed a line too bold to ignore. It is important to understand why this apparent provocation carries such resonance. The rivalry between Rangers and Celtic is not merely about footballing supremacy in Scotland. It intertwines history, religion, politics, and identity in ways few outsiders can fully grasp. When Martin supposedly insulted the Celtic support, it was not just a throwaway remark against another fan base. It was perceived as an attack on a community that defines itself in opposition to the very institution he represents. For Celtic followers, word from a Rangers manager echo louder, cut deeper, and linger longer than insults exchanged between ordinary fans. For Rangers loyalists, however, the situation is seen as an embodiment of pride, their leader showing backbone and unflinching disdain for the green half of Glasgow. Every word feeds into a narrative that stretches decades back, and every reaction contributes to the tension that makes each derby clash the most emotionally charged fixture in British football. What seems trivial to some becomes monumental when filtered through this context, and Martin's name has suddenly entered old firm folklore for better or worse. By Monday afternoon, television crews were parked outside Ibrox Stadium, desperate to catch a glimpse of Martin or obtain a word from any Rangers representative. His refusal to address the growing storm only deepened speculation. Was he being instructed by the club to maintain silence? Or was he personally choosing to let the rumors swirl unchecked, perhaps to unsettle Celtic ahead of their next meeting? Pundits debated strategy versus scandal, pointing out that even negative press can sometimes galvanize a team, especially when it unites players against a common external outrage. Former players weighed in too, some defending Martin's right to express passion in any form, while others cautioned that disrespect towards rival fans crosses boundaries of professionalism. What became evident is that regardless of truth or exaggeration, the story had already captured the imagination of the Scottish football public, dominating headlines and overshadowing actual match performances. For many, this was not about verifying the words, but about enjoying the theater they created, and in Glasgow, theater often feels more intense than reality itself. Meanwhile, Celtic supporters were far from quiet. Outside Celtic Park, banners were displayed mocking Martin's managerial record, insinuating that his words were born from insecurity rather than superiority. Supporters groups organized statements demanding apologies and even hinting at formal complaints to the Scottish Football Association. What had started as whispers had now become an official point of contention, one that could escalate into disciplinary action if governing bodies deemed it necessary. The mood among Celtic's faithful was one of righteous anger, mixed with determination to respond on the pitch. Their players, according to reports, were privately motivated by the controversy, viewing it as fuel to prove dominance in the next derby. For Rangers fans, however, the opposite sentiment was building. Online communities praised Martin for embodying the spirit of their club, refusing to bow to Celtic sensitivities and demonstrating that Rangers would never fear speaking out. The clash of reactions highlighted once more how deeply divided the city remains and how a single remark, whether true or rumored, can inflame passions that burn hotter than any title race. As the days rolled on, more layers of intrigue emerged. Journalists dug into Martin's past interviews, searching for hints of hostility or irreverence towards Celtic. Old clips were unearthed where he spoke passionately about Rangers culture and hinted at his distaste for the other half, although never in such direct terms. These snippets were shared widely, used as ammunition by those determined to prove that the insult was in line with his character. Critics argued that his English upbringing, despite his decision to represent Scotland internationally, gave him a detached perspective that allowed him to provoke without truly grasping the weight of his words. Others countered that his Scottish allegiance was genuine, and his apparent hostility toward Celtic was born from years of immersion in Rangers' values. Whatever the truth, one certainty emerged. Russell Kenneth Alexander Martin had unintentionally or deliberately placed himself at the very center of Scotland's fiercest sporting rivalry, a place where words are never forgotten and reputations are forged or destroyed in equal measure. The stage was set, and all eyes were fixed on what would happen next. The speculation surrounding Martin's comments began to spill beyond football media and into mainstream conversation across Scotland. Talk shows, political figures, and even cultural commentators weighed in on whether this was simply part of the old firm theater or a genuine affront to civility in Scottish sport. One morning radio segment saw a heated debate between a Rangers-supporting journalist and a Celtic-affiliated politician, each framing the story as either justified banter or unforgivable disrespect. The argument reflected how deeply entwined football is in the nation's fabric, where the sport often mirrors wider social divides. For Martin, whether he wanted it or not, the attention elevated him into a lightning rod for debate far beyond tactical choices or squad rotations. Every public appearance now carried the risk of questions about his remarks, and every silence became a statement in itself. As rumors continued to swirl, the anticipation for the next Old Firm match grew exponentially. Tickets were already like gold dust, but after the provocation saga, the fixture had taken on a near-mythical status, a showdown not only of players but of pride, anger, and the simmering hostility of two cities locked in perpetual rivalry. Within the Rangers camp, insiders hinted that Martin used the controversy to rally his squad behind him. Training sessions were described as high-energy, with players reportedly motivated by the idea that their manager was willing to fight verbal battles on their behalf. This kind of us-against-them mentality has long been a weapon in Rangers' arsenal, and Martin seemed keen to exploit it. However, critics warned that such an approach risked backfiring, as focusing too much on off-pitch distractions could leave his team vulnerable when the whistle blows. Some veterans of the club privately questioned whether inflaming Celtic supporters was the wisest move, recalling previous incidents where verbal jabs only inspired their rivals to raise their game. On the flip side, younger players were said to be relishing the firestorm, buying into Martin's portrayal of Rangers as a fortress under siege. Whatever the truth inside Ibrox, it became increasingly clear that Martin's reputation was on the line, not just as a tactician, but as a leader navigating the storm of Scotland's fiercest football feud. Celtic, of course, were not about to let the narrative be dominated solely by Rangers. Reports emerged that their manager delivered a rousing team talk in response to Martin's alleged insult, framing it as a lack of respect for the entire club and its heritage. This speech reportedly resonated with players who understood that representing Celtic is as much about defending honor as it is about winning matches. The training ground in Lennoxtown was described as buzzing with determination, with an emphasis on intensity and discipline. Celtic fans, meanwhile, doubled down on their public displays of defiance. Chants mocking Martin echoed in pubs and fan gatherings, while social media became flooded with memes portraying him as rattled, out of his depth, and desperate for attention. The Celtic faithful, known for their creativity and passion, had turned the controversy into a weapon of humor, refusing to let the insult sting, but instead using it to energize their side. It was a classic Old Firm move, transforming fury into fuel, outrage into opportunity, and setting the stage for a derby that now felt more like a battle for respect than just a football match. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. As anticipation built, bookmakers reported record numbers of bets placed on the upcoming Old Firm clash. Punters were not only predicting the result, but also wagering on side stories, whether Martin would be sent off for touchline antics, whether he would shake hands with Celtic staff, and even whether banners targeting him would appear in the stands. The circus-like atmosphere added to the sense that this was no ordinary league fixture, but rather a cultural event drawing eyes from across the globe. International outlets began covering the saga, explaining to their readers that in Glasgow, football carries a mythology unlike anywhere else. Commentators from England, Spain, and Italy chimed in with comparisons to their own rivalries, though most admitted none could match the raw, layered drama of Rangers versus Celtic. The entire episode proved once again that even the smallest spark can ignite an inferno in Scottish football. Martin's words, or alleged words, had become the defining storyline of the season, and all roads now led to 90 minutes of fury, passion, and noise that would echo far beyond Glasgow. Behind closed doors, however, some analysts suggested that Martin may have underestimated the weight of his comments. While supporters on both sides reveled in the banter and escalation, executives at Rangers were said to be uneasy about potential fallout. The club has spent years cultivating a more professional, global image, and controversies that reinforce stereotypes of hostility could damage commercial ventures. Sponsorship partners were reportedly monitoring the situation, wary of being associated with headlines that framed the club as disrespectful or inflammatory. In modern football, image matters as much as trophies, and Martin's alleged insult threatened to blur those lines. This raised the question, would Rangers stand firmly behind their manager regardless of consequences, or would they seek a quiet resolution, perhaps even an apology, to ease tensions? For now, the silence remained, but within boardrooms, discussions were ongoing. The irony was not lost on observers that a single remark, whose authenticity was never conclusively proven, could spark debates reaching from the terraces to the offices of multinational corporations linked to Scottish football's most historic clubs. And so the city of Glasgow waits, divided but united in anticipation. For Rangers fans, Martin has become a figure of defiance, embodying their club's refusal to bow to Celtic's pride. For Celtic fans, he has turned into a symbol of arrogance, a man whose disrespect fuels their determination to triumph. For the neutral observer, is the perfect storm, passion, controversy, history, and uncertainty swirling together ahead of the biggest fixture in Scotland. What began as a rumor whispered online has evolved into a saga gripping the nation, proving once again that in football, perception often matters more than reality. Whether Martin truly meant to provoke, or whether he is merely the victim of exaggerated gossip, the outcome is the same. Tension at fever pitch, emotions raw, and a derby set to explode with narrative threads too rich for any scriptwriter to invent. When the teams finally step onto the pitch, every tackle, every chant, every gesture will be magnified, and all because one man allegedly let slip a few words that carried the weight of an entire city's rivalry on their back. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.